I'm Erika Barnhart, and welcome to the Pause and Fast podcast. I've lost 90 pounds using healthy eating and clean fasting, but more importantly, I've gained clarity, confidence, and a love for real self-care. This podcast is about sharing what I've learned and creating a community where we can grow together. One mindful choice, one fast, and one day at a time. Because every time you pause, it's a choice. When you stop just for a moment, you take back your control. When you sip water instead of reaching for a snack, when you breathe instead of rushing, fasting is power because when you pause, you're choosing yourself. So grab a cup of coffee or your water, take a deep breath, and let's dive in together. And now for a quick disclaimer. The views and experiences shared on this podcast are of my own and my guests, and they're meant for information and inspiration. They are not a prescription. I am not a medical professional, so please don't take my word over your doctor's. We'll be chatting about things like intermittent fasting and hormone health. And while it might sound like we've tried it all, your body is unique, so before changing your diet or your hormone health plan, check in with your healthcare provider. This podcast is all about sharing ideas and good conversations, not medical instructions, so always listen to your body. It usually knows what's up. Hi, I'm Erika Barnhart, and welcome to the Pause and Fast podcast. I am so excited to introduce my guest today, April Hall. April is from Eva, Alabama. She is a restaurant owner, and she is the Alabama Chicken Queen on Facebook and TikTok. She also is a director of finance for a corporation, and she's running for revenue commissioner in her city or her county, excuse me. She's a mother of 5. She's 48 years old. She is so many things, but I'm excited to find out more about you today, April. So thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate your time, and I'm so excited to get to talk to you today. I had found you through social media and some of our shared communities, and I know that you've been an intermittent faster for nearly 6 years now, coming up in May, right?
May 4th is my 6-year fast anniversary.
Fastiversary. I just had my 4th year fastiversary on March 1st. And May the
Congrats.
4th be with you, Star Wars Day,
That's
right?
it. Every year, that's what I post. May the
Hey,
4th be with you.
that's a good day to start. I would never forget Star Wars Day.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So let's just start a little bit about what first sparked your interest in intermittent fasting. How did that begin for you, April?
So I tell this story. I've told this story on many podcasts, but I found Jen Stevens' Delay Don't Deny through my friend Beth. And I actually, in late January of 2020, I had explant surgery from breast augmentation to explant surgery. I had a very extensive full lift, which put me to bed for a little while. You know, you couldn't use your arms. I'm a person who never sits still. I don't watch television. I very rarely scroll TikTok or Facebook or any of those things. And people get confused. Even my little mama will say, "Did you see such and such on TikTok?" And I'm like, "Mama, I don't watch TikTok. I kind of post and ghost, which is, not maybe the norm. I'm on TikTok, but I don't necessarily have time to stop and scroll." But on Facebook, my friend Beth had posted a picture of a bottle of salad dressing. And the little caption said, "I'm going to break my 20-hour fast with this strawberry salad dressing from the local strawberry farm." And I read that and thought, my 20-hour fast. And it was as simple as I hit Beth on Snapchat and said, "What are you doing?" And she led me to Jen Stevens and the book Delay Don't Deny. So she was like, I read this book and I do this thing where I don't eat, but only a select amount of time a day. But when I eat whatever I want. And she said, "It's all about the clean fast." And I tell people when I heard the clean fast, I heard we're going to eat clean. And I had been there, done that. And I said, "Oh, well, I'm not be able to do that. I don't like to eat clean." And she said, "No, you're not going to eat clean. You're going to fast clean." And I'm like, "Okay, tell me more." And very briefly, so Beth did not get into the weeds of all of it. She said, "No," she said, "during your fasting time, you're going to stay away from flavors and food and calories and sweeteners." And she said, "You're going to do black coffee, unsweetened tea, plain water. You can do sparkling unflavored water." And she said, "And that's it." But she said, "Get the book." She knew I love to read. I love to learn. She's like, "Just get the book." And she told me at that time you could download Audible and get 3 free downloads. And
Mhm.
so that night after, I think this was like probably the 3rd that we chatted, but that night I downloaded Audible, and on the 4th, as I'm walking around the track, I still always was trying something, or trying to move my body, something. I put in my ear pods and I downloaded Delay Don't Deny. I listened to it in 1 4 hour. I obviously didn't walk for 4 hours, but as the day went on, she captured me. I fell in love with Jen Stevens and her little southern drawl, and she seemed to be telling my story of the history of yo-yo diets, why all diets had worked for her in the short term and nothing had stuck long term. And then she started talking about it being a hormonal issue and not a caloric issue, and she just had me. Like I was captured. So I ended up
Absolutely.
listening to the entire book, and that was it. I mean, it was the beginning of the day. I already knew from Beth, don't get up and have any sweet coffee or whatever. And so I started right then. That was my first fast. And like I said, here we are. May 4th will be 6 years.
6 years and still fasting every day.
6 years and still fasting every day. And I told you that, of course, the big plot twist for me is that I lost 45 pounds in 5.5 months. And I was a lifelong yo-yo dieter. I had done everything. Weight Watchers was probably my go-to back then. It was the one
Yes.
thing that I just felt sure I knew how to do and do properly. And each time I had about 3 months of willpower in the tank. I could lose about 20 or 25 pounds. And then that was it. And it didn't matter what the starting weight was. That's what I had in me. I could lose 20 or 25 pounds. And then when that was over, and I returned to eating normally, which I always did, now I understand that was a hormonal response from my body saying, you've tried to starve us for 3 months. And now your brain is saying, you got to eat, you got to eat, you got to eat. But it was like the switch would flip. My mama would always say, she's in one ditch or the other. She's not eating anything or she's eating everything. And that was the truth. It was like I returned to my Oreos and peanut M&Ms and all those things at about the 3-month mark, and I would gain that 25 pounds back plus 2 or 3 every time, and I was in a cycle of, I wanna say, about 18 months because I'd get up my willpower, and I'm like, "I'm gonna do this," and it was usually before we took our beach trip, you know? If women can't relate
Mhm.
to that, what can you relate to? Goodness,
Yeah.
I have to wear a swimsuit. What am I gonna do? And so, you start in, like, March to get ready for the June vacation, and then we would be on vacation, and we would do the things vacationers do. We would eat somewhere good, and we would stop for ice cream, and we would get junk food in the car for the 6-hour drive, and it would, like I said, and somehow I'd end up with a pack of Oreos in my hand, and that was it. I knew it was it, you know?
Yeah, it's over.
And so, yeah, you're obviously not gonna gain it all back during vacation week, but when I'd get home, I was back to my old ways and just pile that weight back on, and every time I would add 2 or 3 to it until I had dieted my way up to the heaviest ever. So 2020, when I went in for surgery, I was at 171.5 pounds, and people say, "Why do you remember that?" I am a numbers person, so there are some milestones in your life that just stand out. That one stands out to me in numbers because I
Get it.
thought, how in the world did this happen? And then,
Yeah.
when you're going into surgery, you're like, well, I'm about to be out of commission for at least 6 weeks or a couple months. It's not about to just get better. And then I think I had a little bit of depression or something going on about the number and about the explant surgery and about just in my own head that this is bad. And I tell the story. This might be too much information for people, but breast augmentation, I was young when I did it and I was ignorant and uninformed. And that's the only way
Yes.
I can describe that. And I hated it from day one, but it didn't take me long to figure out that it caused like just an inflammatory condition, a heaviness and uncomfortableness in my body. And I had been a very avid exerciser before that, but, it really did limit what I could do as far as running or jogging, jumping, whatever. They just always were an unnatural, I say heaviness, but they bothered me. So,
Could understand that. I've never had that, but I could see how something that your body wasn't used to would feel strange, like a foreign thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
and your body does. I mean, not everybody's maybe, but I felt like my body fought against it and that I carried inflammation. I felt like in all pictures, it didn't matter how thin I was, I looked like a football player. It just, but I did start having issues in my neck and my shoulders and my chest just hurting all the time, and so even though I was the heaviest I had ever been, I made the decision that I'm just gonna bite the bullet, have the explant surgery. I had the full lift, which was, like I said, a very extensive surgery, and, then you come out of that, and I was thick through the middle, and the only way I know to describe that is I had when you have the breast augmentation, as far as proportional, it distracts from belly fat, you know? And so I was like, wow, everything has really gotten out of whack. And that depressed me. I just, I thought I wasn't happy in my own skin for maybe the first time ever. And like I said, in the past, I was up and down, but I was never really self conscious about it. It was more of just, I thought that I should be smart enough and have enough control to just keep it in check. And so for the first time, I was like, gosh, I'm just really unhappy in my body. And that's probably why when I read Beth's post, I was looking at it as one more thing, one more diet. I had went through the cycle. I don't know if you ever went down this rabbit hole of self-love in that you don't have to, you know what I mean? Like you can just let it go basically. We're just going to love ourselves exactly as we are. I was only early 40s, but I'm like, it's not going to get any better than this. My best days are behind me and this just the size I'm gonna be, and I did see the pattern. I thought every time I end up right back here or maybe a little bigger, I'm gonna stop doing that. I tried intuitive eating. I'm only gonna eat when I'm hungry. Anyway, all the things were just a way of trying to convince myself, listen, you've done the very best you can, and like none of this works long term. So you give up, you know
Absolutely.
for the first time, I'm like, I'm just not okay in my own, like I have been told I don't lack confidence, and that may not be a compliment when they say it. But, I mean, when you start trying to hide yourself in pictures and hide yourself in clothes and you're just overall uncomfortable in your own skin, that's not a good place mentally. I mean, that's not
Yeah.
love yourself mode.
This isn't the confident
So
woman I want everybody to know.
this is not who I am. And you want who you are to reflect on the outside just like it comes from within, I think. So that's where I was at. And I completely honest, I was really looking at it as last ditch effort. I'm gonna try this one more thing. I mean, what's it gonna hurt? You know?
I've been there too. I'm like, well, it doesn't seem like it's gonna hurt me, so why not?
Right.
I'm already a mess. I hate to say it like that, but then everything changes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you go from this place of desperation. That's what I say. And I said, even with everything in the media currently about all the medications and people want to, they want to fight for one side or the other. I don't get involved in that because I understand the place people come from when they say, I'll try anything. So if you
Absolutely.
understand the desperation that brings people to, I'm just going to try one more thing. And it's hard, and if anything promises to be a little bit easier, then I'm not going to fault people like I said because I understand where they are coming from, you know. Now, do I wish the
Absolutely.
whole world would try intermittent fasting and give it the best go instead? Yes, but that's not for me to decide. That's, an individual decision. So I threw myself into the fasting, just like I do everything in my life, 110%. And I was like, I tell them I started out trying to eat dinner because in Jen's book, she talked about that was her one big blowout meal of the day was dinner. I very quickly realized that wasn't going to be my window. I like to eat early in the day. I tell people I used to say about 2 p.m. was when I guess my blood sugar fell out, but it was like lock up all the food because that's when I could go through and just you know, ate anything not tied down in the kitchen. So I found that my window was 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and I owned and operated my restaurant at the time. I still own it. I'm not there for the day-to-day operations, but my schedule was I'd go in and start working on the lunch special and I'd be busy. I'd get kids off to school in the morning and I'm busy and then I would go to work and I was busy and at about 10 I would take a break and break my fast, something small. I did one meal a day or a snack and a meal. And then we would work the lunch shift, and about 1:30 we closed, and we all sat down as a family, and we would eat lunch, and then that would be my biggest meal, but I still went back and worked dinner service and, cleaned it up, shut it down, and by the time I got home, a shower and bed and food was not on my radar. But
Yes.
then when you self-reflect, I'm like, I've never been a nighttime eater, so that's not my weakness. Like, I'm not a sit on the couch, watch TV, eat snacks. I just don't sit on the couch and watch TV. So
Yes. So that
that
didn't
works.
tempt you.
Yeah, not at all, and that worked the best for me, and I was still very active, like, I had an elliptical, and I would do 30 minutes, an hour on the elliptical, maybe in the morning, maybe during the break between lunch and dinner, and I think it was a combination of that, but I just melted away. So, I lost
Yeah.
45 pounds in 5.5 months, and I was
Wow.
probably thinner than I was in high school, but, it was that shocking drastic. So I went from 171.5 to 126.5, and people thought I had cancer.
It
People were
was a
like,
surprise, right?
yeah, like they would see me and they hadn't seen me in a few months, and they're like, "What has happened?" Of course, their brain caught up with the new version of me, and I wasn't an unhealthy small. I'm only 5'3.5", so, you know,
You were in your ideal weight range?
yeah, it was I thought it was definitely a healthy place. I still had a lot of muscle mass and whatever. But I stayed there at 45 pounds for the longest, probably for 2 years, and then I read Mindy Pell's Fast Like a Girl, and I don't know if you're familiar, but she was gonna fix all of us girls who thought that intermittent fasting, that we could do it maybe the Jen Stevens way, or that we could do it like a man or whatever, and I read that and I thought, "Oh, I wanna be hormonally healthy, so I'm gonna try it, right? I'm gonna do it." And I gained 5 pounds so
Wow.
fast, and I was like, I'm gonna throw this." I talked with Amy Jo, you know, we were in
Yes.
Jen Stevens' group, and we kinda brought that up before everybody, like, "Has anybody else tried this, and what's happening?" And you would not believe the amount of people who said, "Don't do that." Like, "We tried that, and it was a disaster for us." But I gained those 5
Yes.
pounds, and I'm telling you, I couldn't lose them. Nothing I did. They were just with me from then on. So then my new weight was 131.5, and that was for, 2.5, 3 more years. And I told you today, I mean, the last year and a half, I have completely topsy-turvied my career and my schedule and my life, and I've crashed right into perimenopause, and so I'm in a very stressful job now. I am trying a little bit of hormone replacement therapy because I feel like my estrogen just tanked, and, I don't know, I think it's the combination, but part of it is I have put my fasting on a back burner, and I find myself breaking fast too early. For a while, I didn't see my husband much because I worked all the time, so if I got home in the evening and he wanted me to sit with him and eat dinner, which it never bothered him if I didn't eat dinner with him because we worked together and we're together all day, you know? It
Yeah.
wasn't a social event. Well, then all of a sudden, we don't see each other much at all, maybe this one time a day, and I'm like, I felt bad, I'm gonna sit and eat dinner with him. So, absolutely, my rigidity for fasting has relaxed, and I have gained some weight, but I would still say I'm very much an intermittent faster. So, sometimes it's 12 hours, sometimes 14. I try to get to 20 at least 3 or 4 days a week, but being in perimenopause, that has not, it doesn't seem to matter. So, I'm up about 15 pounds total, whatever that is, from one about 100 in the low 140s is about where I'm
Okay,
at
so
now.
15 from your lowest weight
Yeah.
up.
So about I range about 140 to 143 or something like that, which really upset me at first. But I remember when I was 171.5 and I would have killed to be 140, right?
Right.
And
Yeah,
so,
and
it is what it is.
what struck me a little bit, just to go backwards, and I had just listened to your story recently, but you were big on Weight Watchers, and wasn't that close to, like, your Weight Watchers goal weight?
My Weight Watchers goal weight was 130
Okay, and do you feel like you're the same
lifetime.
size as you were as you when you hit your Weight Watchers goal weight, or do you feel like
So,
some body recomposition has gone on?
well, I'm about, what, 5 pounds heavier than my Weight Watchers go, and I'm still in a size 6, and that's what I would, at 137.5, like I said, a numbers person, I kinda know, I'm about a size 6. I definitely have more body fat now than so when I hit my goal with fasting, 100 or my goal was 140, and then
Yes.
all of a sudden I'm 126.5, and I'm like, "What just happened?" I was in zeros and twos. And, lots of people did say, well, that's too small, but a 4, a 6 was unrealistic for so many years that a 6 is fine. You know what I
Yes,
mean? It is comfortable
absolutely.
and fine, but definitely, back then, body recomposition, I was like, I don't think I was this small in high school, you know? It was but for me, all I could describe it was, y'all, that the fat burning kicked in. I was getting into ketosis literally every day, and I melted away. Now,
Yes.
everybody says that perimenopause, you're gonna get, fat around the middle and all these things, and I full disclosure, I am that cynic that when I heard that as a young woman thought, "Okay." Like, I would hear women just so upset and say, "I haven't changed anything. I still eat the same way. I still move the same way." And it's like I have this spare tire that I've never and I thought, "Okay, hey, it's real." And I think that God has a sense of humor that we get to go through and you know what I mean? Because experience is the best teacher, like, you're not gonna tell me that intermittent fasting doesn't work because I lived it. And so now, if anybody said, "Well, I think perimenopause is just an excuse to gain weight," and I'm gonna say, "No, something shifts." Like
Yes.
hormones matter. And because we already are very thoroughly read in intermittent fasting, we already believe that hormones rule the world, right?
Right.
But even with that, it caught me off guard. It was unexpected. And I have had a little struggle with it, like from 2020 till about a year ago, I did not ever go to my closet and pull out a pair of anything that didn't fit, you know? So that
Yeah.
first time you get out a pair of trousers that don't button, it's like, "Oh, no, are we doing this again?"
Yeah.
Because I
That's
have
kind of
flashback
frustrating.
to, for many years, what fit in the spring might not fit in the fall, or what I wore last summer might not fit this summer, but I can say I had a pretty good 5-year run of that just did not happen. And so
Yes.
over the course of the last year, year and a half, I have gone back through that like, "Okay, well, these 2s are not it's not gonna work," you know?
They
And then
don't
I
work
was
for
pretty
your body
comfortable in
now.
a 4, and now I'm like, I might need a 6." And that's okay, I've been a 12
That's
or a
okay.
14, so
Well, I have heard through, other podcasts and everything that during perimenopause, sometimes you do keep that weight in the middle because your body wants to protect your vital organs, or if you
mhm,
were to get sick, it wants to keep that around that section, right? So
yeah,
I do believe that that is partially part of it. Your body's trying to protect itself. I've had a couple friends ask me for advice on this as well, and they same size all of their life, very slender, and all of a sudden just getting this weight in the middle, and
mhm.
that's something else too. I'm like, "Not me," but I could see how it could happen
Yeah.
pretty
Well,
easily.
I mean, just we talk about body composition and body recomposition with fasting is so amazing. But like my problem area has never been my stomach. It was always like lower half, like thighs and, hips and all that. And so then this time, I mean, it's in the middle and it's like, what is happening? But every single woman hopefully earns the privilege to go through it, right? And we say, there are so many other changes that happen personality wise and confidence wise. And I think we're in a cocoon and we're just coming into our own. And we may look a little bit different when we emerge. And that's okay. Like I said, I'm 48 years old. I think I'm in fantastic shape for 48 years old.
Yes.
So if I hate to, Amy Joe and I have talked like Amy Joe Holcomb. I think you've interviewed her, and we talk about
Yes.
we're in fasting groups together, and she is my real life friend who I met through the internet, through fasting groups, but we talked about this and we say, what would menopause have done to us had we not found fasting first? You
Absolutely.
know? So I think that it was inevitable for us to go through it, but we're still in such a better situation than we would have been had we not had fasting as a tool in our toolbox.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you reiterated that, and that's something I always ask because I truly believe that I've set myself up for the most success with this phase of my life. I haven't really started yet, but I'm always talking to people to find out what I need to know. Um, excuse me. But even my mother had shared with me that her and my grandmother experienced the most depression and anxiety during perimenopause, and I've already started feeling that a little bit. I was like the dude, chill as a cucumber, nothing really got to me, it's okay, and now all of a sudden, like, anxiety creeps up a little bit.
Hmm.
Who am I, right?
And you
But
say,
I
what is
know,
that? It's
"What is
unfamiliar.
this?" Yeah, nothing's ever bothered me before. Why am I so concerned about, like, today's timeline? That doesn't make
Yes.
sense to me. But, um, I'm recognizing it, and I also know that fasting has cleared up so much of that anxiety for me, and even mental health and wellness and the way I deal with things in my life. Would you agree that's the same for you?
Absolutely, and I always we talk Amy Jo and I talked about that, we are emotional eaters. My mother would 100% say she is an emotional eater, and, if we were sad, she made us treats, brought us treats. Her mother did the same. If we're happy, we're celebrating with food. If we're
Yes.
sad, we're medicating with food. And so 100% for those last 5 years, it was like I had this mental clarity that food won't fix it, you know? And, now I will like I said, being fully transparent, going into being the new person in a big corporation and a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, and my boss, she makes the joke that she keeps chocolate everywhere, and she does, like, she orders those giant bags from Sam's Club of whatever your favorite is. She really wants to have somebody's thing, whatever it is they like, and so initially, who can resist that? And we laugh and say, we find ourselves eating chocolate bars mindlessly again because they don't let us drink at work. But, it is definitely we use food as medication, and do I know beyond a shadow of a doubt food won't fix it? Yes. Yes, I do. Am I human? And in that moment, I'm eating a chocolate bar and it doesn't fix it. It never fixes it. But, I have some self-awareness. Obviously, like I said, I'm very much human, and when you encounter new situations, I'm gonna have to work through this like everything else in my life, how to manage it without the chocolate bar.
Absolutely.
You know, so 100% transparency. Did I contribute to some of my weight gain? Sure, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
old habits die hard. Well, we're living, and that's another thing, like, where my corporation's located and our schedule, sometimes we do meetings through lunch, and they just bring in lunch, and, and our choices are pizza. I mean, it might be a burger and fries from Red Robin. That might be my one meal of the day, but it's still not the it's not the fuel my body runs best on, and I know that, but, by that time of the day, everybody's stressed, we're just hungry, and we just eat what's there, and I
Done
don't
that.
think I'll be in that cycle forever either. I
Yes, well,
think if
you
I
just
worked
started a
from
new job,
home yeah, I think if I worked from home, would have a better I know I would have a better handle on it, and, I'm obviously not gonna eat 3 slices of pizza at home because you can't get delivery where I live, that
right?
helps, but,
That does help.
it's kind of like I said, it's almost a feeling of out of control in that I don't get to pick, And if I do get to pick, there are not great choices around where we are to have brought in for delivery, whatever. Now, could I meal prep and take that? Sure. And I do a little segment called Break Room Chef where I actually cook for the whole office in the break room. And I do that a couple days a week. And I try to choose things that are a little bit healthier, but at the same time, it has to be able to be crock pot. So we have soups and chilies and sometimes I do casserole. I cook burgers on the grill. They need to check that out on Facebook. But
Mm,
it's still a better choice than pizza or carryout. And that'll be my
absolutely.
one meal for the day. When I first started, like I said, I was trying to have some dinners with my husband, but I've gone back to, hey, that doesn't work for me. I'll sit
Yeah,
there with you while you eat, but that doesn't work for me. And, you got to draw a hard line in the sand sometimes. So I know what to do. I also know that sometimes fasting through a high stress, crazy hormone situation is not the answer. Sometimes fasting through it raises your cortisol even more. So I'm just trying to listen, like I said, listen to my body. And I know that I have friends who got on the other side of menopause and they're like, okay, now's the time that I can really focus on this. And they, whatever they picked up during menopause, they dropped it. So I'm not without hope. But at the same time, I told you I wouldn't come on here and be like, oh, it's sunshine and rainbows. But
yes.
for 5 years, it was. I told people, I said, "I've never done anything easier in my life. Like, this is just now what I do. It's second nature." And that wasn't fair. People didn't wanna hear that either because you hear all the stories of the struggle and the ups and downs, and the fasting worked for me initially, and then I had a death in the family, or I went through a divorce, or
Right.
whatever,
A
and
trauma.
I didn't have any story like that of a life circumstance changing. I just fasted through all the things. But now my story very much reflects theirs. Like I said, it's like a total upheaval of my life, of my career. All my kids grew up and moved away. during this time and left me, and you grieve that. Like, I was a
Yes.
mama that liked to mama, so you grieve that, and now I can actually say, I have gone through some things that have affected my fasting, and, the effect of that was I put on some weight, but I still very much believe that fasting is the answer for people's health problems. If anybody comes to me and says, "Oh, they've diagnosed me with type 2 diabetes or insulin resistant," the first thing I'm gonna say is, we gotta get
We
you to
gotta
stop
get you
eating all the
fasting.
time." Yeah, we've gotta
Absolutely.
get you on some kind of fasting schedule, and my little mama, like, she is very intermittent in her intermittent fasting. When she does, but again, like I said, emotional eater, she lives alone, all of us are so busy, and sometimes she meditates with food. It is what it is. But when she does fasting the way she knows how to do it, her blood pressure stays normal, her blood sugar stays normal, and she just feels better. And there's no
Absolutely.
disputing that intermittent fasting is a health resource for all of us. And luckily, I don't have any issues with insulin resistance or blood sugar or any of that. But if I were to, and I know that perimenopause opens us up to more susceptibility to that, if I were to,
Yes.
I definitely know that tightening my window, choosing the best food sources for my body is the answer, no doubt.
Yes.
There are all different personalities at work, okay? And so I used to, like I said, I have shared the gospel of fasting for a long, long time. And I've talked to tons of people. And one thing that I've always said to people is that from hearing others' experience, it is a slippery slope of no fasting. And I think that's why I tried my very best. Now, I lived my life and we had special occasions, but I tried my very best to just stick to I'm a 10 to 2. This is what I do. I'm clean fast. I don't want cream in my coffee. I don't want sweetener in my unsweet tea. If I am fasting, I'm clean fasting. And one of the reasons was because I heard people that were like, I was on track, things were going well. And then I just, everybody's picking up coffee from work and you can't just order black coffee when everybody else is getting a whip and nay nay, I call it, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I just started doing that a couple times a week. Well, and your blood sugar spiked and then it fell out and then you were opening your window 4 hours early because because you had the shakes, and I'm like, "It's just a slippery slope." But I felt like when Mindy said, "On these days, you're not gonna fast at all," that people were like, "That gives me permission on those days to get up and make my hot milkshake," and, you just get your blood sugar out of whack, and that's probably where I'm at right now is just back on the blood sugar roller coaster. You feel hungry,
It's
and
true.
I never wanted to go back, so I call the first 2 weeks of fasting Hell Week or Hell Weeks. That's what I call them because I remember just thinking, "I'll die. I have a headache. I'm so hungry." Training my body to do this, magical fasting
This
thing,
new thing.
and I always thought, "I don't wanna go back through that." So I don't ever wanna throw my body out of adjustment phase where I have to start over, and that's what happens, I think. I think that people like I said, different personalities. Not everybody is rigid like me and disciplined like me. And that's okay. It takes all kind of people to make the world go round. My advice was always don't ever get so far out there that you have to start over or you feel like you're not starting over, but that you feel like because your body very much has to go back through those adjustment phases of burning up your glycogen,
Yes.
and getting back to where you can enter ketosis every day. And that's not keto flu, I mean, those stages were real and they weren't fun, and I always try to keep them fresh in my mind. But, like, right now, that's what I battle. On those days where I'm having a 14-hour fast, probably I closed my window the night before with something high carb, or maybe it was we ate pizza the day before, and then now all of that, the blood sugar thing, and my body's like, "You're hungry," and I might not really be, but it's very real in the moment. So
Yes, it is.
I told you I was excited to do this because I thought I need definitely a new, what is it, incentive to just tighten it up and do the things. Nobody wants to come on here and say, "Well, I've gained 15 pounds,"
Right.
you know?
But this is the reality of it too. Not every day is perfect, and sometimes things
Exactly.
happen.
Not every period of your life is perfect, you know?
No,
That's it. But
I feel that
perfection's not
deeply.
required, right?
Absolutely. And I just try to remind people that fasting will still be there. So even if you've caught yourself with some longer windows, you could just start shaving it off tomorrow or change a couple things. And life really does happen. You've had a lot going on,
It's
especially,
tools
yeah,
tools in your
the
toolbox.
restaurant owner, your running for an office and everything. So that kind of brings me to self-care. During this season of your life when you're so busy, you even shared with me that you recently were a student. I really identify with that. I have so my hands in so many pots that once in a while I'm like, how do I have time to take care of myself? What kind of things have you been doing to take care of yourself?
So I am every week I have a massage, a 1 hour standing appointment massage that I will not cancel unless I just have the flu. And I think I'm going to give it to sweet little Maureen is my massage therapist. And we've
Shout
been
out
in
to Marine.
yes, we have been in a steady relationship. I laugh and tell her for, I don't remember how many years now, maybe 5. But every Wednesday at 5 o'clock, my kids, my husband, they know I am not going to answer the phone. I'm not even going to take it in there with me, but a 1 hour massage. And I shared with you that I'm dealing with the perimenopausal frozen shoulder, bilateral in both shoulders, and going to a job now where I'm very much computer centric all day and my arms are
Mhm.
I thought so I went back to school in 2024. I've been a restaurant owner operator for 30 years, very physical labor, very demanding job. On your feet, a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of, think about sweeping, mopping, scraping, doing. And I really thought, starting a career in corporate or in finance behind a keyboard, this is going to be work smarter, not harder. But the truth is, whatever you overuse gives you a problem. And so now it's just a different muscle group, you know?
Yeah.
So, but my 1 hour with Maureen keeps me going. I'm like, "That's my favorite hour of the week." I tell her that my husband doesn't want me to say she's my favorite person, but she is, you know?
Yes.
So, massage
And she knows you
therapy,
so well.
that's my indulgence. I used to never get my hair done. I didn't get nails done because in the restaurant business, you can't have nails. Now I do a little bit of that. I love a pedicure, but massage therapy, we have a hot tub, and, it's not uncommon for me to have to just come home and put on the ponytail or shower cap and get in the hot tub and just, I need to be moving my body more, exercise and those things. But sometimes I leave work before daylight and I roll in here. It's about bedtime. The days are gonna be longer, so I keep telling myself that I'm gonna get to the walking trail and do some walking. I need to put sneakers in my car and go on my lunch break if I get a lunch break.
Yeah,
But even this is just a season, and I
this is
know
just a
that
season.
going in brand new to this corporate office, and there are a lot of things to straighten out and do, and it's just a lot of responsibility and pressure, but I'll get there, and when I get it to something I can manage better, then I'll have more time to do those things. I always do feel better, though, if I'm getting to walk or jog or whatever, and I gotta get these shoulders broke loose, then I'm gonna be a new woman. I can be back to so I currently can't lift weights. I can't do the elliptical because of the motion of the arm part, and,
Yes.
I
And the
hate to say
frozen
I just
shoulder is likely a symptom of perimenopause, correct?
yeah, they say it's so common in perimenopause and menopause because low testosterone makes your inflammation levels kinda take it allows them to take over, but low
Yeah.
estrogen makes your tissue tougher, and, they say that shoulder capsule, for whatever reason, that it just kinda shrinks. I imagine it in there as, like, fibers that have just grabbed hold and dried up, and so any motion that fights against it not being able to move is like a ripping, tearing, searing pain, but it's all day long. Like this morning, I was on the couch and I just reached to get my coffee, and I'm like in the worst pain of your life, but it's for like 2 minutes and then it subsides. And then you try to get your seatbelt and you've freshly torn it. That's what it really feels like, or you try to put on a suit jacket. So it is a crazy thing. And I said, I think I've had it coming on for years, but working physically at the restaurant, I kept it broke loose. Now I sit at a keyboard and it has allowed it to just kind of actually freeze up. So I'm at the stage where it affects my sleep. It definitely affects my mental health because I'm not used to chronic pain. I'm used to just go,
Yeah.
go, go, and nothing slows me down. So I'm actually looking into in the next month or so being put to sleep and having these broken loose. And then I'll have
Okay.
physical therapy. But I'm good. Again, I'm in a season. And when that's over, I'm hoping I'll be back to being able to lift some light weights and do those
Yes.
things we know we need for bone health and muscle, retention. So,
It's just where
but
you're at
hey,
right now.
a massage, look, a brisk walk, sit in the hot tub. Those are currently that's about all I have time for.
I'm not sure what the weather is like in Alabama, but I live in Pennsylvania, and we just started having some nicer days. It's very early. It's almost spring. So I'm as well. I'm like, I'm gonna start walking more. I want to get outside and get some sun, do some yard work. So I'm excited about that. But I think the massage, if you have the opportunity to get a massage, I also do that. Although shout out to my girl Lindsay, I only
Mhm.
go once a month, but now I'm thinking about going once a week. So that's a good.
Well, like, I'm a very frugal person where money's concerned, but I'll mortgage my house to go see Maureen every week. I mean, like I said, that is my indulgence.
That's your indulgence, and you deserve that, and a hot tub too. I also have a hot tub, so and just like you said, there are many times I drive a lot for work, and I'll come home
Mhm.
in the evening and be like, "Let's watch our TV show in the hot tub."
Like, my massage therapist, she's like, "Go home and ice," and I'm like, "I hate cold. I don't want
I
to.
hate
Maybe
cold
get in the hot
too.
tub."
Don't tell me to ice anything
I know,
except
I
for my
hate
ice water, maybe.
right. I don't even put ice in my water. I drink room temperature water, and I always have. I hate cold. I hate it. Isn't that crazy?
That's funny.
I got a
That's funny.
frappe thing for a treat yesterday. My husband went through McDonald's. I don't eat McDonald's food, but he got me the little mocha frappe, and I had a brain freeze. I was like, "This is why I hate cold things."
This is it. Yes, we wanna be warm. So we talked about some benefits just beyond weight loss, the reasons why you continue to fast. What are some of those that you found for you?
So, my big miracle was that I have interstitial cystitis diagnosis from about 15 years ago. I don't know
Okay.
if you're familiar with that at all, but it's a inflammatory condition of the bladder, which mimics like a urinary tract infection, spasms, pain, burning, like you think you are dying. The only
Mm,
problem is if you have a UTI, they'll give you an antibiotic. You're good to go in about a day. There's no treatment for this.
okay. So it feels bad, but there's not an infection to treat.
Right,
So
right.
what
So,
is the treatment?
yeah, so your urine will come back clean and I mean, there's not one. And it's kinda triggered by stress, but it's being an inflammatory condition, I found that when I started fasting and lost all the weight, it was months before I realized, "Oh my goodness, I haven't had the first twinge of pain." I had not
Wow.
had and so, to me, like I said, that was a miracle, and I did not have a flare for 5 years. Now I went through something, I'll say traumatic for me, about back in, like, August of '25, when I went through something at another job that I was working at, and I had my first flare in, like I said, at least 5 years, and it was a doozy. Now, during that period, I will definitely say I probably was not fasting right or taking care of myself. And what you talked about anxiety. So I went through that. I think that's the first time I've ever experienced anxiety, really. It was almost a paralyzing, couple of months where I made it to work and I made it home, and then I might get in bed with my power suit on. I mean, so I won't get into the weeds of that, but I did have a flare and I thought, wow, I haven't missed this at all. And I haven't had a flare since. So I think it was more stress induced than anything. But like I said, at the time, I won't say for those period of months I was fasting right or doing anything right. But so I believe it just lowered my inflammation so much that it took care of that. I was lactose intolerant for years and years, and anybody that's battled that knows that's terrible. It's terrible. Like
Yeah.
my family wanted to eat pizza or grab an ice cream cone or whatever, and it sent you into hours of agony and whatever. Completely reversed my lactose intolerance. I can eat anything, cheese, dairy, pizza, anything now. And I think it's gut health. I think
Great.
I repaired my gut health and maybe those good bacteria started to take over. So those were two huge wins for me. And then outside of that, like I said, I really felt like it gave me that mental clarity that, hey, food will not fix it. I just felt so good. I had crazy energy, just crazy energy. I slept so well. Even being perimenopausal, like I said, I'm doing a little bit of hormone replacement, but I'm doing estradiol and a little bit of testosterone. And she said, "Do you need progesterone for sleep?" And I don't. I sleep great. I may not have gotten there on that stage yet, but I
Hopefully
felt
not
like that.
ever.
I felt like fasting, like I said, it gave me this incredible clarity and energy to do all the things throughout the day. And then I slept fantastic.
I
Those are
hope
some of
that
my non scale
that's my
wins.
story too. Sleep is so important. I also am a good sleeper, so it always scares me when I hear about sleep. I hope I'm not in that situation, but to have a solution for your lactose intolerance and for the bladder issues and less inflammation alone is a great reason to keep fasting.
Absolutely. Well, my family is, you know, notorious for type 2 diabetes, heart disease, a little bit of cancer, all these things. My dad passed away at 62 years young from
Too young.
diabetic heart disease, and his dad was only 67 and it was type 2 diabetes. My mom has type, that is my motivation to always keep my weight in check and keep an eye on the numbers. And for me, I just thought even my brother was diagnosed at I think 40 with type 2 diabetes. And I was like, I'm not going down that path. And
No.
so those were my whys. Like when I read Delay Don't Deny, I thought, hey, I could lose a few pounds. When I read the obesity code, I said, this is going to change my future. This is going to prevent all of these metabolic disorders that my family, I wanted to tell everybody. Like I read the obesity code and I cried and thought, if we had this information 20 years ago, I really believe my dad would still be here. If we'd had it
Yes.
40 years ago, maybe his dad would have lived to see 80 or whatever. But they were in that era of they did not know about lowering insulin, so they were treating too much insulin with more insulin,
Yes.
and it was this terrible cycle, lose a toe, lose a foot, lose a leg. The science just was not there. And even
Yes. Dr.
my
Jason
dad,
Fung.
yes, Dr. Jason Fung, and I read the obesity code and then I read the diabetes code. And I mean, life-changing information. So I don't think anybody has to, even if they have gotten the diagnosis. Now I think science is maybe catching up. Metformin and those kind of drugs are geared at lowering insulin resistance or
Yes.
instead of just pumping more insulin into a too much insulin issue. So hopefully, that just helps everybody to have better quality of life and whatever. But I really think beyond metformin, intermittent fasting and keep understanding insulin resistance and how to keep your insulin low until you become insulin sensitive again. I mean, I think it can
Yes.
change lives. I
I
think that's
agree.
the biggest piece of it for me is I wanted to tell everybody, like I said, I wanted to shout it from the rooftop, especially in my family, is this is what, you need to do. And some had great results. And my brother, the diabetic brother had, he lost 50 pounds. He's kept it off for
Wow.
about as long as I have. I mean, now with his type 2 diabetes kind of stuff, they've given him Manjaro or something, something, one of
Something.
those. And I'm, again, that's his own personal journey. And if he believes that it helps with his diabetic, whatever, he still fasts every day, you know.
Well, that's good. That's good, and I think that there's a lot of confusion around it even still, and I couldn't believe when I read Dr. Jason Fung's obesity code, so many things sunk in, that we were treating insulin resistance with more insulin, and I guess I always use this basic example, but, like, if you're becoming resistant to something, you should stop using it, right? So your body
Yes.
loses like, for example, if your alcohol tolerance is very high, I just like this is
Mhm.
one example, and you stop drinking for a little while, then it will lower your resistance to
Yes.
alcohol. Does that make sense?
It makes
So,
perfect sense.
yeah, seems like a basic concept, but that it just clicked for me with, Dr. Jason Fung. And it's a lot to read, but the information is so valuable. Are there
I
any other
love
books?
sciencey. Like, I've had people like, "I tried to read that, and it was so sciencey," and I'm like, "That's what I liked about it." I mean, it was, but it's still I think still anybody could take away. They said, "I read that, and then I thought, he didn't tell us what to do." I'm like, "He did." Like,
He
he was
did.
trying to tell you eat real food, do away with the ultra processed garbage, give your body time to let your insulin levels drop. I took away a couple of other little cheats from that, like the apple cider vinegar. Did you ever? And I still do that occasionally. Maybe I should get back to that. But like anytime I had something high carb, I made sure that I had something high fiber with it to keep it from impacting my blood. There were so many things
Yes.
that I'm not doing now that that we're talking about. I'm thinking,
There was something else too that if you added a vinegar to your I try to have a vinaigrette salad dressing
mhm.
more often because that vinegar actually makes your insulin
It
decline
keeps it from
quicker. Like
spiking, yeah, yeah. So, He said, like, anything high carb, that if you could incorporate some apple cider vinegar or just even something with more protein and more fiber, that it offsets those spikes, the
Yes.
insulin spikes or the blood sugar spikes. But so I did incorporate a whole lot of that into my journey too. And maybe it was a combination of all those things that I lost weight so quickly. Maybe I need to get my
Yes.
book out and read it again.
Hey, maybe we all do, right? It's always a good reminder, a refresh, and there might be something easy that you could tweak that you might see some results.
Yeah.
Maybe
Jen
even
had,
just changing the
she's,
order of what you eat.
you're right. I mean, again, we get away from the science of all those things, but there was a reason behind why we were doing it. Jen Stevens, she released Delay Don't Deny. She's tweaked it a little bit and released it again, and I don't know that I've downloaded that one. So, I had the privilege of spending a week in Jen Stevens' home this past summer.
That's so fun.
Amy Joe and I
That's
went
so
to
crazy.
Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and stayed with Jen. And I mean, if you had told me 6 years ago when I read her book that that's where that's where we're headed, that was amazing, and she very much lives what she preaches. She fasts
What an
all
amazing
day, and
opportunity.
it was fantastic. She is a blast. We had a blast. But even at that point, I was not where I am now. She would probably be like, "April, you know what to do." So,
She's such a teacher, and, there's been a few times where she's, like, said something, I'm like, "Ouch, but she's right, and I should listen." So,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah,
I
she's
might need to
usually pretty
call her.
spot on. And I
Yeah.
know that she had just, she did the second version of Delay, Don't Deny. So if you are looking to get that book, look for version 2. My understanding is a big difference is that she kinda rewrote the part about alternate day fasting to make it more clear. So
Good, good.
yeah, that's something that they didn't really explain very well in the first version. And then, of course, like I said, I love Fast Feast Repeat. I love The Hunger Code, and The Hunger Code is the one he just came out with, Jason Fung.
I need
Just
to read it.
released it just came out, like, literally a couple days ago. I don't have it yet, but it's on my summer reading list. So if you wanna dig into some science, check that out.
Feast Repeat, I think that's like the Bible of fasting. I mean, you can find out anything you need to. I read AC, Power of Appetite Correction,
Yes,
early on, and I gleaned a little bit of wisdom from all of those things, and then, like I said, you just find your own way. But I think Jen Stevens, when she introduced the concept of the clean fast, that was the one thing that should never be negotiable. Like when you are fasting, do it without anything that can spike your insulins, and that to me in itself controls your hunger. I definitely I learned early on that I don't want to break my fast or open my window, even with a stick of chewing gum, until I am ready to eat, because my insulin response is fast and furious. And like you said, now I've got to eat or everybody is going to feel my wrath. So, yeah, that to me, that proves all her theories about just
that proves the clean
don't
fast to
mess
me.
with it. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're doing clean fasting, and as you should be, and you want to know, do that little experiment. Make sure you're ready to eat because you're gonna feel it, I think. But I've done it myself. I'm like, okay, the appetizer's coming in 15 minutes. Let's try
I've
this.
done
And
the
then it
same with a
definitely
diet soda. Like, you order diet soda at the restaurant, which, I mean, I don't recommend hey, we haven't talked about that at all, but I gave up diet soda and all those things altogether for 5 years, and I started a new job, stressful environment. The Coke company stocked free diet sodas for employees, and one day I just thought, "What the heck?" And then it's like a gateway drug that opened the door back to that, and it just came back full force, and then before I know it, I'm just drinking diet soda again. So, I did
during
a
your
week.
eating window.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
not during the clean fast, no, but even still, I really think there's some kinda chemical in that that's like an excitotoxin in your brain, and then it triggers cravings for other terrible things. I think it ruins your gut health. I'm not s I'm saying this from a place of, I know better, but I'm struggling, on the
You've
struggle
been
bus with that.
experimenting and
Yeah.
yeah.
So I did a couple weeks without diet soda lately, and I was like, my food choices were so much better and so much less snacking and garbage in my window. And then I want to say, like, I'm trying to think why I had one again, and then it's like craziness. But
I can understand that. I also stopped drinking diet soda. I used to be a very big fan of artificial sweetener, diet iced tea, Diet Coke, Sprite Zero. Those are like my favorite things in the world. But I think you're onto something. It's like your body tastes the sweetness, but that doesn't actually get the sugar. So then something reacts. We're like, well, we're going to figure out how to get you to eat the sugar
Yeah,
that we want or
yeah,
something. I can't figure it out.
connection to that. And again, knowing the right thing to do and doing it sometimes are not the same thing.
Absolutely. Sometimes you eat just for pleasure and not because it's the right thing, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we're focused on that today. And that is something that a lot of new fasters go through. So, if you were to give someone advice who is just beginning or they're just interested in intermittent fasting, what would you tell them?
First and foremost, read the books, educate yourself on why scientifically this works. Because for me, that was the connection when I understood why and then how. Jen Stevens to me, like I said, fast, feast, repeat. If you only have a small amount of time that you can read and absorb, do delay, don't deny. But if you're really serious about understanding how it works within your body, get fast, feast, repeat. But educate yourself on the why and then the how to do it. And then just start wherever you're at. You do not have to be perfect from the beginning, but you need to understand the clean fast and get the garbage out of your fasting time. Black coffee, unsweet tea, I think that, will help control your hunger more than anything else. And then, like I said, just start where you're at. And if you can add a little bit of time every day, and you'll find your sweet spot. I
You will.
really think it's important to pay attention to what you're doing now. Like, when is your hungriest time? Because I have found that's going to be your window. That's gonna be you need to have your window around that because that's your body's natural rhythm, your circadian rhythm. If you're a nighttime eater, you're gonna wanna eat dinner. I'm not. Like, I don't necessarily ever want breakfast when I first wake up, but it's that middle of the day for me, and so I do very well with that window. You can't copy what somebody else does, you have to find what works for you and satisfies you, and then you'll be able to continue it, because if it never becomes easy, you won't stick with it. So you find your sweet spot, like I said, and try to add some time on the ends of that fast every day until you get there. And don't worry about the weight loss for a month. Jen preaches that. I think that's true. Some people will adapt and get into fat burning within 2 weeks, but you don't know what's going on inside if you're dealing with insulin resistance or, like you said, hormonal imbalance or fatty liver. You might have to have a longer period of healing. So don't compare your journey to anybody else's, right?
Love that.
And don't set unrealistic goals. Like, remember, fasting, if you're serious about it, will become your lifestyle. This is not another diet. And so, like I told you, I always had 3 months in the tank. That's how much willpower I had. Well, that's what my body would tolerate before it fought back hormonally.
Yes.
So, this is not that. This is learning. You're teaching your body something new, and hopefully, it's going to become a lifestyle so you're not like on a time restriction. It's the only thing you'll ever do that becomes easier with time instead of harder. I hit that 3-month mark and it's like, I can't do it one more day. I cannot count one more point. I'm just going to go crazy, eat all the things. And with fasting, it was the opposite. It was like the longer I did it, it became my body's natural rhythm. It just got easier. I didn't even think about it. It's just what I did, you know?
That's one of the most surprising things, isn't it?
It's how you know it's not a diet. This is how for me, that's how I knew it was different. When I'm at 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, and it's not a struggle. It's not something I'm making myself do. It's
Yes.
just literally how I live my life. And there's no other diet I ever followed that was like that for
No.
me.
No, people ask me all the time if I'm still doing it, and now I actually have trouble sometimes having, like, a down day than an up day because it is hard for me to eat, like, 3 times in one day. It just doesn't feel good or natural. I still do it once in a while. I enjoy a good down day, but it's actually a thoughtful challenge, and I'm glad I don't have to do that every day anymore.
Yeah. I don't I almost never did the alternate day. I just like to eat one time a day. And again, with that, depending on your level of insulin resistance, whatever, you might need that longer fast to break through, burn up your glycogen, get there. But it's just a personal journey for everybody. But my thing is everybody should be doing something. Everybody should be pushing breakfast back, doing some black coffee, cutting that eating off early. Nobody should be eating up until bedtime unless that's your little window. With me and reflux and those kind of things, that could never be my window. Like, I cannot go to bed full. I prefer to be done eating by about 2 o'clock. My husband is a little thin man. He's never had a weight issue, but he ate Tums like they were candy, and he had these terrible blood sugar episodes. He really believed in his heart that he had to eat every 2 or 3 hours or he was gonna be sick, and I would watch it happen. Like, he's bald. He could take his cap off, and he would have beads of sweat beating up and running down, and the shakes if he couldn't eat right. Like, when it was
Yeah.
time to eat, he got so grouchy, and then he would have this physical, actual thing, so these blood sugar issues. Well, he ate breakfast every day. He would eat a pack of that fruit-flavored oatmeal
Yeah.
and peanut butter toast, cream in his coffee. So he was starting out his day with a huge blood sugar spike, and then by
Yeah.
lunch, it had dipped, crashed, whatever, and he's got to eat. And so he really thought that he had to eat 3 or 4 times a day, and he started doing a 16-8. He pushed breakfast to about 10, so he's 10 to 6 usually, and a lot of times he's finished eating before 6, but he stuck with that forever. He didn't really need to lose weight, but he probably did lose 10 or 15 pounds, and he has stayed right there, but he has no acid reflux. He has no sugar issues, like no blood sugar roller coaster, no breaking out in a sweat, no grouchy gotta eat right this
That's
minute.
wonderful.
Isn't that amazing? And all
Yes.
he did was, I mean, he didn't go hardcore 4-hour window. He just, like I said, he stopped waking up and eating sugar. And if he does ever do a breakfast on the weekend, he'll do like bacon and eggs or sausage and eggs, something that he knows is not gonna cause that spike and then
Sugar
crash.
spike.
Yeah. Um, but like I said, I think even people without weight issues can benefit from shortening that amount of time that you have your insulin elevated in a day.
100%, I agree. It could help with your, blood results, indigestion, blood sugar control. I think that everybody, literally everybody can how do I wanna say it? Can benefit from a little bit of fasting.
They
So
can yeah, it will. I think I agree. That's what I say. I don't think it has to be for weight loss at all, but your body needs time to do something besides digestion. Did you when we read that, hey, you're giving your body a quiet time to work on healing other things and like autophagy to recycle your proteins and the junk, and I think it would cut down on, like you said, even cancer. You've
I
got to
agree.
give your body a break. If it cannot concentrate on all the things all the time. So if you're not doing digestion, that's a great lesson. They should teach that in school, you know?
They
Let
should.
your let your
It's
body
just
do
like
something else.
I needed permission, from my diet history. It was always like I was afraid that my metabolism would tank or
Mhm.
something, but and I'd have to keep it moving like a fuel to the fire, but then when I flipped it to, like, maybe a little digestive rest would actually be good and my body could do some other things like healing, then, that all made sense to me and I feel it every day.
Well, when we caught on to the reality, and I think everything just seems to be maybe catching up, like, in the media and in the world, like, we're being like the food pyramid. That was a bill of goods. They sold us
Yes.
a bill of goods. Now, did we realize at the time it was about selling lots of processed carbs in the grocery store? We didn't, I don't think, right? Like,
No, no.
we gotta sell those crackers and bread and
No, we were just
whatever.
excited about, whole grains. We were doing healthy things.
Yeah, and so the food pyramid's a lie. Eat 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 small meals a day or every 3 to 4 hours, that's a lie. Red meat is bad is a lie. Eggs is will ruin your cholesterol, a lie. So, I think maybe enough humans have caught on and are kicking up a fuss and saying they've got it all wrong, they've got it all backwards. But if we understand that money is the motivation for things, it's not our health. It was not about our health. It was about promoting
It was about
products,
consuming. Absolutely.
spending money, and no, they don't want to advocate for fasting because it's free. It's free and it saves you so much money and so much time. And those were the things I liked. Like, you didn't spend time thinking about food.
Absolutely.
The world revolves around what we're going to eat next.
And now I look around and even the things that were advertised to me before that I loved, I look at them like that's not real food. I'm
Ah,
able to recognize real food now, and that's a
yeah.
gift.
Yeah. And that was another one of those things where they said we're overfed but undernourished, and that's why we're hungry all the time. But when you give your body real fuel, which is hard to come by nowadays,
Sometimes, yes,
some of the Some of the nutrients have, they're like, there's no nutrients in the soil, and that's why your sweet potato doesn't have. But anyway, good cuts of protein. I like a baked sweet potato. Broccoli is probably my favorite vegetable. Those things satisfy you. And it's so strange. But when we're having days of McDonald's and pizza and whatever, tomorrow's going to be the day we're starving to death. So that should
It's
be the
true.
proofs in the pudding kind of thing.
Yep. That's the day that I run in the house and I make my big salad because 'cause I'm craving it for
Yeah.
real, like,
Yeah.
legitimate, and that's a huge shift as well. When I used to crave things like cookies or dessert, I'm actually craving things like broccoli and sweet potatoes, so I'll take it.
Yeah, when I first started, I was a terrible junk food junkie, and when I first started fasting and I got on these cravings, like, I had steak and broccoli, I bet for 3 weeks straight. That was my one meal a day, steak and broccoli, and then it was like, found out I had low iron. Well, it was like my body caught up, and then I could not eat red meat. I'm not a huge red meat eater anyway, but I could not eat red meat for months, and my husband's, like, grilling steaks because she's been on this steak kick, and I'm like, I can't eat that, but then
Yeah,
it was like
pause.
tuna fish and boiled eggs was one of my weird things, but a sweet potato, I hated sweet potatoes my entire life, and I kept having this, like, vision of eating a sweet potato, and I thought, "I don't even like that, but why not?" So I microwaved a sweet potato, and I ate it, everything but the skin, and my husband's like, "I thought you hated that," and I'm like, "That was maybe the best thing I've ever had."
Not
And
anymore.
no, and so then it was grilled chicken, broccoli, and sweet potato, I said was my perfect meal, brown rice. Now see, I am one of those people who I feel like with no carbohydrates, I'm still hungry, but I don't love meat. So that might be why. You figure you have to work out your own salvation. That's what I say. If you do great on carnivore, then incorporate that into fasting. Want some brown rice or a sweet potato, you know, that's what works for me. Beans. Jen Stevens talks about she
Beans.
loves beans. I love beans.
I
So
love beans too. I
that
do.
that works for me.
They're
But
so satisfying.
your body will absolutely tell you what it needs if you can get it to a place you can hear it.
Awesome. That's
That's
great
where I gotta get
advice.
back.
Yes, listen to your body. Yeah, it doesn't love the pizza, and the pizza doesn't
No,
love you back.
it doesn't. It doesn't. So maybe they need to get me a better setup in my break room kitchen where I can grill some chicken. Maybe I'll
I
bring
agree.
my grill box and put it out in the warehouse.
I love it.
Who knows?
Take some pictures. I'll be watching the Alabama
The
chicken
Alabama
queen.
chicken queen break room chef, and you can comment and say, "Girl, that was not the right choice today."
Or maybe it's what your soul needed as well, but I'm
Yeah.
glad that we're thinking about it. So, thank you so much for your time today, April. I really appreciate hearing from you and getting an update on your journey. I'll be following along with you for many years to come. I hope I'll be watching your YouTube channel or I'm sorry, your TikTok channel and learning
Facebook
cooking ideas.
I'm on TikTok and Facebook, but thank you for having me and allowing me to kind of be in this headspace today. Like I said, I've got a lot of things going on. I am campaigning for Morgan County Revenue Commissioner. I'd say I work a 9 to 5, but it's more like a 7 to bedtime. But, I like that pause. You gave me a pause this morning to think about, that maybe making my health a priority has to fit in there a little bit better than what I've been doing lately. So thanks.
Thank you. And I'm sure that the people listening are going to gain something from your story as well. And I hopefully we're able to help people together.
That's the main thing, and like I said, I love the gospel of fasting because it did change my life in so many ways for the better.
Amen. Thank you so much for listening to the Pause and Fast podcast. It truly means the world to have you here showing up for yourself and for this community. So please remember to subscribe to this channel and like and share this video with anybody who's interested in intermittent fasting. If you want to keep the conversation going, then please join us at the Pause and Fast Facebook group. It's where we connect with each other and support each other on this journey. You can also follow me on TikTok and Instagram for more fasting tips and advice. And if you feel compelled to share your journey, I would be honored to hear it. So please email me at pause.and.fast@gmail.com. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. So thank you again for listening. And until then, I'm cheering you on. So let's keep moving forward for great health together. Have a great day.